Hello and welcome back to BSB Must Reads, where we share with you all the books we think you must be reading this month. And today I have with me the lovely Skye Rowan. Hi, Skye.
Hi.
And you're here to talk about your debut novel. Are you excited? Your first novel is going to be out in the world.
I'm absolutely buzzing for it. I can't wait. It's super exciting times.
Awesome. So I would love to learn more about you because you are brand new and folks won't have met you yet, and about your book, Craving Cassie. Great title, love it. And I'd love to hear you read from us whenever you're ready.
Okay, so my name is Skye Rowan. You will tell from the accent that I am from England. I live in a little village in Yorkshire, so northern accent as well. In my kind of other world, I'm actually a primary school teacher. So that kind of keeps me busy in the day, but I've wanted to write a book for ages. So I thought I would have a go and kind of see what happened. And this has kind of been a story that's been around in my head for a lot of years and kind of exploring issues that I've really wanted to look into. So the book is called Craving Cassie, and it's about two women from very separate worlds who kind of hit a collision course together that you would never expect, really. You've got one who's married actually at the time when she meets Cassie with children, and then you've got the other one who's kind of like a lesbian Lothario who just doesn't commit and will not commit to relationships, and it's their journey together and kind of the highs and lows of their adventure. So I'm actually going to read from the first bit of the story, and it's the first chapter, and it's actually when Siobhan and Cassie meet for the first time. Siobhan has been placed under Cassie's supervision, really, as a trainee. Cassie's not particularly thrilled about it. And this is kind of the bit where Siobhan is walking through the office and finding out a little bit about Cassie, and then their first meeting. So I'm going to read now. As they passed other employees, some smiled at Siobhan, but most regarded her with what could only be described as better you than me sympathy. The least promising look came from Julie, who eventually showed Siobhan to a seat in an office space immediately outside Cassie's, where she now perched, twisting her wedding ring as if it were a cap on a tube of toothpaste that she just couldn't get open. Julie took up a seat at the desk opposite, making herself at home in a way that could only indicate this was her usual workspace. It was clear that Cassie wasn't a safe subject for conversation. Perhaps Julie would prefer to talk about herself. So, Siobhan asked, have you worked here long? Long enough to recognise a polished chalice, poisoned chalice when I see one. Siobhan nearly choked on the deep breath she'd just inhaled. Poisoned chalice? This is the first time Cassie has ever been asked to train someone. There's a reason for that. Julie stared at Siobhan as if she expected her to fill in the gaps. When Siobhan merely blinked at her, Julie glanced around as if she expected Cassie to be looming behind or lurking in the shadows. She's not exactly a people person. In fact, she's pretty impossible to work with, and I'm just her secretary. I'm not sure what the thinking is behind putting the pair of you together. I can't imagine her having the patience to teach you anything. Julie paused for dramatic effect. About investment banking. I think you've said enough. Siobhan pulled on her wedding ring so hard it dropped to the floor. She reached down to retrieve it, and when she looked up, she noticed Julie's mouth was agape. Her chest puffed up like a bird, feathers about to explode. Really? Siobhan bristled, putting her hand up to stop her. I've heard enough. Ignoring Siobhan as if she'd been asked to elaborate, Julie said, you do know she's a lesbian. What? Siobhan rubbed her sweaty palms together, confused that of all the information Julie could have imparted on her, she had chosen this. I think everyone is entitled to a private life. The door to Cassie's office opened. Good luck, Julie whispered, giving Siobhan a thumbs up that seemed more like a middle finger. A lackadaisical voice floated out of the office. I'm guessing this is the earliest you've ever been late. There, oozing cool, leaned against the door frame, arms folded across a fitted black shirt, stood Cassie Townsend. Siobhan glanced at her watch. She wasn't late at all. Desperate to regain her equilibrium after Julie had thrown her completely off balance, Siobhan took another deep breath, rolled her shoulders back and manoeuvred her mouth into a smile to display a confidence she didn't truly feel. Cassie smiled back. Hoping her hair still looked sleek around her face, Siobhan stood and followed Cassie into the office. Inside, she encountered Cassie's lavish decor. Good, she'd have something else to look at besides Cassie's "don't fuck with me" expression. She tried not to appear awestruck, but everything in the office demanded her attention. 2 large pieces of artwork decorated the walls, one immediately capturing Siobhan's attention. 2 towering rock formations crept out of the ocean. She'd always loved the ocean, sitting in front of Mum's car listening to show tunes as they travelled the Ring of Kerry together, just the 2 of them. She smiled at the memory. Am I interrupting something? Siobhan was startled back into the present as Cassie, standing up beside her, arms still folded, eyebrows raised. Faint heat crept into her cheeks that she'd been caught out so early in their interaction. Sorry, I was just admiring the colours of the ocean here. It's an incredible piece of artwork. I'm Siobhan. Cassie turned around and slipped back toward her desk, reclining in her chair and kicking her feet up. She pointed at herself. Cassie, but you can call me Miss Townsend. Pleased to meet you, Miss Townsend. Siobhan held out her hand, which Cassie took, shaking it with more force than Siobhan had expected. I'm looking forward to working with you. Cassie drummed her fingers on the desk. About that. I don't share my space. You can work out there. She pointed to where Siobhan had just come from. I've just asked Julie to organise a desk for you. I should have asked her sooner, but today sort of crept up on me. There was no apology in Cassie's tone. I'm meeting a client later this morning to run through some financial projections. I really don't have much time for this. That's okay. Siobhan shuffled from one foot to the other and back again, questioning whether she meant now or ever. I can help sort that space out. I'm meeting with, there won't be any meeting. Your training is my responsibility. Welcome to the deep end, and I hope you make a splash when you're thrown in, for my sake. Cassie couldn't have looked any less thrilled than if she'd been asked to hike across the desert for a morning Starbucks, only to find they'd run out of milk. Siobhan's excitement at being partnered with the best the company had to offer was deflated by the fact that Cassie saw her as nothing more than a burden. I'm pretty capable, Siobhan said. I'm sure there are lots of things I can make a start on. I'm a quick learner, and since you won't have to show me things twice, I won't impose on your time unnecessarily. Siobhan was sure she saw the corners of Cassie's mouth twitch upwards, but as quickly as it came, it went. She watched as Cassie picked up a document and scowled at it. She had never seen anyone glare at something so inoffensive with such animosity. Here, Cassie offered her the document. This would be a good place to start. Thanks. Siobhan hoped her smile conveyed her willingness accurately, but it was rebuffed in no uncertain terms. Siobhan's eyes drifted down to the document, then widened in surprise, her feelings mixed. This is the pitch book for your meeting today. I can't think of a better way to learn than on the job, can you? But you're only there to observe. You mustn't get involved. That's my one direction. I'm thinking, accompany me today, gain some insight, read the pitch books, then by the end of the week, you can handle things on your own, right? Siobhan nodded. I'll take them home to get up to speed, as long as you don't lose them. Cassie pulled open a drawer and pulled out a packet of cigarettes. Any questions? Just ask. Right, because approachable is your middle name. The moment the comment left Siobhan's mouth, she longed to retract it. How on earth had she let it out into the world in the first place? Wow. Siobhan watched Cassie's posture stiffen and braced herself for the imminent scolding. Instead, Cassie pocketed her lighter and made for the door. When she brushed past her, Siobhan saw her drop a cigarette and with an irritated sigh bent to retrieve it. Much like these cigarettes, I come with a warning. Cassie stared pointedly at her. That thing about your approachability, I didn't just say it out loud, did I? Because that would be ridiculous. Yes, and you said it with such conviction too. Cassie angled her head. Her eyes seemed to linger. Have I met my match? I'm not in the habit of starting fires, Siobhan returned, hoping humour would help. Nor I extinguishing them. When Cassie arched an eyebrow this time, Siobhan turned back to the towering rocks depicted on the wall, wondering if now was the time to throw herself off them. Cannon Beach. Siobhan flinched with both the shock of Cassie's voice sweeping over her shoulder and her imminent presence so close behind. It's in Oregon. You seem to like the painting. I love the ocean. This painting reminded me how much. We're lucky in London, we can be at the coast in an hour. Perhaps that explains the outfit. Cassie's mouth twitched again at Siobhan, staring nonplussed, waiting for an explanation. You look like a stick of rock. Cassie sniggered at the striped shirt sneaking out despite Siobhan's failed attempt to keep it hidden under her blazer. Damn it, she should have changed after all. Not everyone pulls off black with such aplomb. Cassie's eyes lit up. Compliments, indeed. Actually, my sister lives in Broadstairs. The views from there are spectacular, especially where the jagged cliffs reach out into the emotion. I have time for frivolous, whimsical things like enjoying the view. I'm far too busy being a sensational investment banker. I was just thinking the same. Not the sensational investment banker bit, Siobhan quickly clarified. I'm happy to leave that to you. She cringed, hearing herself laugh. I was actually thinking I should make more of an effort to take the kids to the seaside. At the mention of her kids, Siobhan saw Cassie's expression harden, her mouth downturned in what Cassie could only read as perpetual disapproval. I really need to smoke the cigarette. Cassie waved the cigarette as if it were a magic wand and exited her office.
Oh man, that's a tough first meet.
It is a pretty tough first meeting for sure.
Oh gosh. All right. I'm sitting here grateful for my boss right now, because definitely thrown in the deep end. But I can't wait to find out what happens. So as mentioned, this is your very first book. Where did you get this idea? What prompted you to write this one?
Well, I did a degree in English many years ago, and when I was doing it, I really noticed there were just no characters that represented me, that kind of represented my thoughts, feelings, things I was interested in, and I was like, do you know what? It's a bit sad really that it's just not represented in the course that I did. And these characters of Siobhan and Cassie came to me and were talking literally, I mean, I'm nearly 40 now, so 20 years ago was when these characters came to me. And I kind of, they followed me around for many years. I've kind of heard their thoughts, their voices. And I was like, do you know what? I need to actually sit down and get these characters written, because they're always there. I've also always been kind of interested in the dynamics of a relationship where a character may come to find their sexuality later on in life, and also what they bring to that. So obviously Siobhan brings kind of this husband figure kind of in the background, and you know, she's got 2 kids as well, and how somebody that's kind of always been out there and has always been openly gay kind of reacts to that and responds, and how they, you know, they deal with that baggage together, and kind of build with that, and how that journey works, and also kind of the impact it can have potentially on the children as well, and how they're built into that.
Yeah, that's a lot to work with. I'm not surprised those characters didn't leave you alone. That's awesome. Okay, so this is a workplace romance.
Yeah.
And so I have to ask, I love the way that you wrote Cassie and Siobhan's romance with like the banker, the investment banker, and the trainee, but doesn't have any like cringy Me Too kind of vibes. What sorts of things did you have to keep in mind as the writer when writing kind of a consensual, romantic workplace romance, but between 2 people who are at different stages on the corporate hierarchy?
Well, the most important thing was to make sure there was no abuse of power. You know, that kind of had to be set there from the start, really. And even though Siobhan kind of comes in as a trainee, she makes it very clear from the start that she is aiming to be, you know, at the level that Cassie's at, and she's kind of coming in to learn to be at that level. And also one of the reasons she's actually doing it is because she wants to make a better life for herself, her family. So she's, you know, she is hopefully coming in, because when I originally wrote it, it kind of was in a different format where they weren't necessarily on the same level. And I just felt it didn't work. So that was important. But also the chemistry had to be there on both sides right from the start. And the attraction had to go both ways. It could never have been kind of Cassie pursuing Siobhan with Siobhan not interested, really. So all the times in the story where the boundaries are pushed, it's kind of Siobhan that does it first. And she kind of always is willing to give back, and she actually does she makes a lot of the first steps, really. So I thought it was really important that we kind of had her doing that, rather than Cassie being in this position where potentially it could be seen as her abusing her power. And I feel like there's never a point where it actually feels inappropriate, because you always feel there's a connection between the 2 of them, and you know, they actually get to know each other, they invest their time in one another, and it never feels like they're taking it kind of beyond where it's appropriate for it to go.
Yeah, yeah, that makes total sense. And I think authors often do the same thing with other power dynamics, like age gap, right? It's
Yeah.
usually the younger character who makes the first move, too, which I think takes a lot of that kind of contentiousness out of it. So awesome. So let's jump back to Siobhan, and you were saying about her coming out and kind of the trials and tribulations of doing that later in life, because in the beginning of the book she is married and she does have kids, and there's lots of baggage that comes along with that. Tell us more about her journey throughout the book, and how does she come to realize that she is attracted to Cassie in a way that she's never felt before?
Well, what I love about her as a character is she's definitely a character that knows her own mind and isn't afraid to admit her feelings at any point in the story. So even when we first meet her, yes, she has got this husband, she's got these 2 kids, but she's very open and honest from the start and says, when I was younger, I did have feelings for women. I've never acted on them. I haven't kind of followed things through. And she's almost learned from her mistakes, because she's in this position where she's ready right from the start of the story to leave her husband. And she is, working towards building this better life. So she's kind of ready. She doesn't want to waste any more time. And then obviously she meets Cassie, and there is an instant attraction, an instant spark between them, despite Cassie kind of trying to step back from it. But Siobhan knows from the start, and it's actually her that insists on proper acknowledgement from Cassie. Cassie's quite keen at the start, because of her own experiences in the past, to try and play it cool. And Siobhan is kind of always asking for that acceptance of their relationship and to acknowledge their feelings and things. And basically it explores her coming out from the perspective of actually someone that's always known it but just hasn't been able to act on their feelings. So I feel like that's really strong. And I also like the way the kids almost push her in that way as well. So they they have a really good understanding of where Siobhan's coming from, and that's because she's always been honest and open with them, but they're very accepting from the start, and they almost kind of push them together in a way as well. So they make it quite easy for her, which I thought was really important to write, really, because there are so many situations now where you do have the kids that are involved, and they have to be accepting. And it's one of the great things about the story, really, how their approach to the relationship is as well.
Oh, I love that. And I love that, it is a coming out story, but Siobhan is ready to, to come out, has gotten to a point in her life where, she's acknowledged her attraction to women in the past. And she's ready even before she meets Cassie. So I love that. That's very empowering. Well, please do check out Craving Cassie by Skye Rowan, out this November 1st from the Bold Strokes Books web store, and November 15 everywhere books are sold. Check it out.